Hi, everybody. Welcome again to The Worldview. I'm your host, Chris Greco. For the next 30 minutes, we'll be talking about things that you may have heard, may not have heard in the media, about different aspects of world culture, politics, conflict. The things that we take a look at in our country is unbelievably narrow minded. We do not seem to be able to get ourselves out of these oceanic borders. And it amazes me at times how things like this we just simply ignore. It doesn't affect us, so therefore it's kind of not in our wheelhouse. So we're just going to move on into something else. Serbia, Kosovo. Let's talk about that. The brink of war. Now, I'll tell you, I can do the same thing the media does. I can put a panic thing into this. The brink of war. The minute I say the brink of war, all of a sudden people are going to say, whoa, I didn't realize Serbia and Kosovo were that close. Or is there a problem there? Where is Serbia and Kosovo? What's the history behind it? And all these different things. So first of all, I want to make sure that we do the geography first, because I think that's pretty important. So let's go to the geography portion of this thing first and make sure that we understand where we are. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the world. This is the place we live in. So, I mean, it's something that, is round, and it's got a lot of different countries. 193 belong to the UN. And in that area, there's a place called Europe. And what happens is in Europe is a lot of things occur there, but like we don't really care about that because it doesn't affect us. And I'll show you. I have Google Trends at the end to show you what we do care about in the United States, which will be a sad commentary on what we have here as the United States of America society. When we take a look at things that interest us, we take a look at things that are only brought to us by the morning shows, right? All the different channels that have these morning shows, and then all of a sudden we are just into this, right? Haystack news. This is an unsolicited, or an unprovoked, whatever it is. I don't get any money for this from Haystack News. Haystack News is the news channel that people should go to and go to international. Screw the domestic crap that goes on in this country. At this point in time, we need to focus on stuff that's happening in the world. And an international will show you all the international aspects of what's going on. You'll hear countries that you'll sit back and you go, I wonder where that is. And two of those countries that concern us specifically are Kosovo and Serbia. So let's take a look at this. So here are the two countries. There's Serbia right there. Now, this whole area in here was originally called Yugoslavia. I mean, this Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Slovenia, all these areas here, Montenegro, Kosovo, North Macedonia, all were part of Yugoslavia. Albania was not part of Yugoslavia, but it was a separate, basically communist country, right across from Italy, right here. So here's where this is located, right? Serbia and Kosovo. So you have Kosovo here, about 2 million people, quarter the size of New York City, and Serbia, much larger country. Now what's happening is, and let me just describe this geographically, and I'll describe it in the PowerPoint presentations. But right in here, there's a lot of provinces that are basically ethnic Serbian. They're Serbian areas. You see that red line right here? So Serbia does not recognize Kosovo, hence the red line. Serbia does not recognize Kosovo. The US does. NATO does. Serbia does not. So basically what's happening is that you have Serbian ethnics that are located in these northern provinces of Kosovo that want to maintain association with Serbia. And the Kosovars down here, basically Muslim, are saying, no, Kosovo, we want, they basically are Albanians is what they are. Albania is right here. So Albania and Kosovo are bordered here. So there's a lot of, and there's not that many provinces here, but some of them are Serbs. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about all the other aspects, but I wanted to just give you an idea as to where these countries are located. And here's Ukraine right here. So everyone says, so, well, where's Ukraine? Ukraine's right here. I mean, so here you have Ukraine, Romania, and Serbia right here. So it's only one country away. Through Hungary, it's this side. Through Romania, it's this side. Bulgaria is over here, kind of by itself. But I mean, we have, and then Greece is here, Turkey's here. So there's Greece and Turkey, both part of NATO, Bulgaria part of NATO, Romania part of NATO. NATO, you have Poland part of NATO, Slovakia, Czechia, all part of NATO. So these are all NATO countries. And what we have is we have Serbia right in the middle of this thing. So let's talk about this for a second and make sure, and so you understand exactly what's going on. I think that's pretty important. So Serbia, Croatia, Kosovo, the brink of war. All right. Large history here, and I'm sorry but to bore you with this, but basically the history is very important. Post World War I, right, about 1917, decision to break up the Austrian-Hungarian Empire because they lost basically World War I. So the countries established included the Kingdom of the Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes. Right, the Croats favored federal structure in order to maintain diversity, while the Serbs wanted one country. Serbia Belgrade was also was part of that whole deal. They wanted to maintain that with the capital Belgrade. 1929, King Alexander, right, Kingdom of the Serbs, declares a royal dictatorship and changed the name of the country to Yugoslavia. Then 1941, that occurred. Wasn't much done at that point in time. Infrastructure was bad. It wasn't a lot of things for the people that were being done. 1941, bang, Yugoslavia invaded by Axis powers. I have to say one thing. If you ever want Alistair McLean, I think his name was. He did Guns and Navarone, a couple others. He had a book called Partisans, and Partisans talks about, and this guy Alistair McLean was part of the intelligence community in World War II, but he talked about the partisans and how the Yugoslav partisans were one of the strongest resistance movements in Europe. They held, I think it was either one division or two division of Panzer tanks from Nazi Germany because they wanted to try to control Yugoslavia. They held them, basically hamstrung them, so they were taken out of battle with the Allies during World War II. So they really did help. The amazing partisanship. So that's the problem there. 1941, Yugoslavia poor, was having issues. Agriculture was its major industry, but the rails were poor. You couldn't have railroads. Birth rates were high illiteracy rate up to 60%. Now the references are in the back here, and I'll show them to you. So they get through World War II. The individual who did that was Joseph Tito, called him Marshal Tito. And Marshal Tito was basically, he was a very strong leader, and he didn't put up with a lot of crud, especially from the Soviet Union. So he split from the Soviet Union in 1948, decided he wasn't going to be part of that. He was in charge of partisans that helped defeat Germany, very strong partisan. Ho Chi Minh was in charge of partisans that helped to defeat Japan. Mao Zedong was the partisan leader in China that helped to defeat the Japanese. So a lot of partisan leaders that suddenly found their way into a leadership position after World War II. So Yugoslavia expands with other lands acquired from Italy and Dalmatia. So now they have 6 republics: Croatia, Montenegro, Serbia, Slovenia. Slovenia, by the way, is its own country, and it's doing very poorly right now with inflation and some of the other areas. Bosnia and Herzegovina and Macedonia. So those are the 6 republics, and that's what Yugoslavia was made of. Now, the thing that you notice about all these is that, Vietnam's strong and China was strong. When these leaders die, things start to happen. And things start to split up because they have very strong leaders. And whenever you have everything located in one area, like a president or a prime minister or whatever else, and they're very strong and they stay hold and they grab hold of whatever else, when they die or when they move on, then there's some issues with trying to figure out who's going to run the country next. So Serbia, during the Tito's area, granted autonomy to 2 of its provinces, Kosovo and Vojvodina. So Tito modeled the government after the Soviet Union, the power base in the Federal Executive Council, of which he was president for life, right? So 1980, Tito dies. Maybe he'd been dying for like 2 years before, but basically he dies. Government starts to unravel, productivity plummets, inflation, unemployment raised considerably. Labor union was in charge of wages. The labor organizations were in charge of wages, raised the wages to the point where there was no longer any efficiency. It was just everyone was just getting larger wages. Well, you can see when you do that, and the economics professors that are listening to this, if there are any that are listening to it, can go ahead and comment on this. But my take on it is the more you raise wages without the commensurate or the combination of productivity, basically what happens is just you're overpaying for certain work, and that's what inflation will take a toll on that. So that's what happened there. Then in 1991, Slovenia and Croatia secede from the Yugoslav Federation, which was considered to be Kingdom of the Serbs and all that. 1992, North Macedonia secedes from the Federation, so they're done. 1992, the Bosniaks, Bosnia Herzegovina and Croatia, they vote to succeed. But then all of a sudden, Serbia says enough of that. They start funding and supporting rebels in both those areas to make sure that they're having a problem. They're having issues. Serbia and Montenegro create a new federation of Yugoslavia, and with all its power basically more or less in Serbia. 1995, Serb rebellions in Bosnia and Croatia cease for lack of support because Serbians were they were having issues with again inflation and all these issues that they have when you try to take over an entire area that you can't control. 1998, Kosovo undergoes a civil war because the ethnic Albanians want greater autonomy, right? Serbia conducts military offensives against the Kosovo Liberation Army, which they consider to be a terrorist group, KLA. And then in 1999, originally, and even NATO and everyone considers them to be terrorist groups until Serbia decides to do some ethnic cleansing. And then in 1999, NATO responds with a bombing campaign. They want to bring people to the peace table. The Kosovars, they sign the peace treaty. Serbians don't. So NATO takes response for that. Slobodan Milosevic, later found guilty of war crimes, but died of a heart attack in prison. Interesting. Orders a campaign of ethnic cleansing, which I talked about earlier. June 1999, peace accord reached and change in Yugoslav government. Slobodan Milosevic is gone. He ends up going to The Hague and being tried for war crimes. UN and the Council of Europe both accept Yugoslavia, now Serbia and Montenegro, back into the fold. But then in 2006, Montenegro declares its independence from Serbia. So now that's why all of a sudden you have like 7 different countries here. So what about the current situation? What's happening? Well, Kosovo has always wanted separation from Serbia in order to maintain the Albanian culture. And that was an issue. And they were some of the leaders of Kosovo were more than happy to have Serbians in Kosovo. That was fine, live together, that type of thing. But Serbians were they didn't want Muslims to be in Kosovo and to take over Kosovo. And here's why, is because Serbia considers Kosovo holy ground. That is the foundation of the church. It'd be the same thing as if something would happen in Rome, right? And Catholics would all of a sudden sit there, because that's kind of like the holy ground area. That's like the focus of the religion, of the Orthodox religion for the Serbians. So fighting took place between Kosovo Liberation Army and the Serbian Yugoslav forces, right? Serbia threw ethnic Albanians back into Albania, causing a refugee crisis, and that was a problem. And then the UN peacekeeping forces came to quell the issues along with NATO. Kosovo declared independence in 2008, but Serbia didn't recognize it, but the US did, and the other European countries did. So what's happening right now? Kosovo and Serbia have some inter-border disputes. Complaints range from having to obtain Serbian license plates in order to cross the border to work. Then the KLA, they become the Kosovo Protection Corps and later the Kosovo Security Force. Former KLM members were declared war criminals by the International Criminal Tribunal, but most of them were acquitted. One such member of the KLA ends up to serve as both prime minister and president of Kosovo, even though it's he did some questionable things, according to some reports, including organized crime in that type of area. So that's what's happening there. So Kosovo has about 2 million people. I said that before. In 2018, Kosovo decides to raise the duties on imports from Serbia by 100%. This is just one of the issues. I already talked about the license plate issue and the licensing issue and all that. The Serbian army started to reinforce the border, right? Troops build up along the border continues to this very day. The Kosovars are getting ready to respond with military force. This all from clashes between the Kosovo police and protesters who are opposed to Albanian mayors taking office in ethnic Serbian areas of Kosovo. So, I mean, this is because there are ethnic Serbs in the northern portion right near Serbia, and the southern area, you have ethnic Albanians, ethnic Albanians that are coming from Albania. So that's where that issue is. So let's talk about prognosis here for a second. Both the UN and NATO are not doing enough to prevent an all-out war between Serbia and Kosovo. Now, they have UN peacekeeping forces there, NATO forces are there, they call them KFOR. All these different situations are there. At least there, I think Serbia is kind of holding back a little bit, because if they go in there, they start firing on Kosovars and they end up, hitting a NATO or UN troop, there's going to be issues. But I see through reports in different areas and open source and all that it's kind of a hands-off type situation. Well, nicey, but the bottom line is that we're in the same situation that we were in with Ukraine and Russia. There's massing along the border. There's ethnic Serbs right across the border. They're complaining that want help from Serbia. Right? Sound familiar? So all these things are happening that could very much be a Russian-Ukraine type situation. And the problem is we are so focused on Russia-Ukraine at this point in time is that this is going to be like what they call balloon squeezing, where you take the balloon, you squeeze off, sudden something pops up, you knock it down. It's like whack-a-mole type situation. This is not going to be a good situation, especially if Serbia rolls into Kosovo. So shots are going to be fired here. My prognosis is there's going to be shots fired across the border. Somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to get killed. The minute that happens, especially in Eastern Europe, and I've seen this happen, is that all of a sudden a couple of shots are cross border, and then all of a sudden it turns into an all-out, no kidding, skirmish, and then skirmishes turn into war. So whenever you have people aiming weapons at each other, somebody's going to pull a trigger. And when somebody pulls a trigger, then the other trigger's pulled, and it goes on and on and on. So that's what's going on. And that's really, really scary about this, is that these border disputes can very easily turn into an all-out war. And these are the references that I wanted to make sure that you have. But I think the most important thing to end up this thing is to talk about Google Trends. This is Google Trends, folks. This is over the past day. Harry and Meghan's car chase in blue, Serbia and Kosovo in red. I mean, okay, the red is more than the blue, but not that much. Look, and the blue turns here. I mean, come on, really? That Harry and Meghan's car chase is more important in the Google Trends than Serbia-Kosovo aspects. I mean, that's crazy, and if we can go past the 7 days. In the past 7 days, what are we talking about? Well, at least it's a little bit better in that it's at least this is dying, which is good. And then you talk about this area, at least people are becoming more and more concerned about that. But let's add something here that's going to be really sad. Let's add this one, right? Let's talk about this one. This, ladies and gentlemen, is really, really sad. This is a sad, sad, sad social commentary on the United States of America. I mean, that this individual would have more search trends than Serbia, Kosovo. I mean, ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But that's, I hate to say that's our country right now, but that's our country right now. I mean, it gets almost to the point of, what is more important here. So just it gets nutsy cuckoo, and you know, let, I'd like to know what Albania thinks. So what did Albania think? Huh, interesting. There's Harry and Meghan way down here, and look where everything is. It's up here. So I mean, at least Albania is concerned about it. What about some of the other ones? What about let's go down here to Kosovo and see. Well, let's go to Serbia. Let's go to Serbia and see what Serbia says, because I think that's important. So Serbia, what does Serbia think? About the same thing, somewhat. I mean, but look down here. Even in Serbia, it's the Google Trends searches are down. Past 7 days, past hour, past 4 hours. That's the same. So I mean, it's very interesting to see. At least we know that in regional aspects, it's very different from that standpoint. But that's how I do it. Google Trends is really easy to get to too. Trends.google.com. There it is, and then you can put in your own. You put in your own areas. So I mean, it gets to be almost a little bit ridiculous from the standpoint. Look at that. I mean, gum. So you can do all categories. You can do web search, image search, YouTube search, all these different things, because of course Google. So Serbia, Kosovo, you can see the Google search is way down. I mean, look at this. I mean, it was great on May 28th, and now all of a sudden it's going down. So that's and that so that's what the situation is between Serbia and Kosovo. And one more time, very important, show you again geography, right? Here's Serbia. Okay. Kosovo, North Macedonia. We talked about all these. Albania, separate country. You have all these separate countries in here. And it is something that we need to take a look at and make sure that that we always take a look at a world aspect of this whole situation. So I mean, otherwise, what are you doing? If you don't sit back and figure out exactly what's going on, then basically what's going to happen is you're going to be left behind. The United States is going to be left behind. I don't even know if high school kids could point out Kosovo or Serbia. I don't know if they could do that. I think if you'd ask high school kids right now where Serbia and Kosovo is, they'd be more interested in what the newest TikTok video is, rather than the real, true to life, honest to God crises and drama that's happening in the world itself. So I'll get off my soapbox. But bottom line is this: is that if you continue to take a look at Serbia and Kosovo, you're going to find that it's going to continue to be very volatile. There's going to be situations that happen between Kosovo and Serbia that's going to like poke the bear this way, poke the bear that way, poke the bear this way. It's just going to be that area because it's a very emotionally charged area anyways. And that's what's going to happen. So in summary, Serbia and Kosovo are at each other's throats, and they've been at each other's throats for decades, to the point where there were casualties, there was crises, there was ethnic cleansing done by Milosevic, who's now dead. There were situations that are happening that we need to take a look at from the long-term perspective and figure out exactly what's going on. And I think that's important. So that does it for me today, talking about Serbia and Kosovo. I would like to say have a great Memorial Day weekend. Well, this will go on after the day after Memorial Day. But I did want to say I am a veteran. I have some friends who have died, and I wanted to make sure that you understand that the service members that risk their lives to go out and protect this country are worth remembering. It's not a time for celebration. We do not celebrate Memorial Day. Memorial Day is for a remembrance. If you know of a veteran, um, remember him or her, not just on this day, but on every day. And take a look at the flags and understand what they represent. And the blood and treasure, mainly the blood that we've given in wars and conflicts around the world, is something that we don't have to do. People that are in the military have volunteered. It's been a volunteer force since the 70s. It's something that is to be cherished and something that uh, we should all remember. Please take the time this Memorial Day, even if it's just 15, 20 minutes out from your picnic or grill or whatever you're going to do this Memorial Day, to take a second just to remember those people. The thank you for your service is fine, and I appreciate it. I do, and so do the other veterans. But more so than that is to just recognize generally what veterans do, and to recognize that and to understand that. Two holidays a year, Memorial Day and Veterans Day for veterans. Memorial Day is to remember and memorialize the dead. Veterans Day is to remember the living. And that's two important holidays we need to understand. So, on that note, I will say please have a very safe holiday. Remember the veterans. And always, 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 please, please, please have a worldview. Take care.